I have some old 32 TM2 XLT boots that are starting to separate right here. I am going to go ahead and glue this together and clamp it back down with shoe glue. The first step is to clean out any debris. I'm just gonna get these Q-tips a little bit wet and then just kind of go in and clean in here like this. I'm not just waterproofing a seam. This has to stick together. We're gonna fill this entire space and then clamp it down. Next step is to open this. You can use this pointy part right here. I was considering using a popsicle stick, but it's gonna be too thick for this area. Instead, I'm gonna use some of these because you can see there's a very narrow, very thin point on the end, and that'll get into this a lot easier and with less mess. I'm not worried about making this perfect though. These boots are 3-4 years old. The tricky part with this is going to be that we need a clamp here and a clamp here. I'm going to have to manipulate this in a couple different directions. I spent about 20 minutes trying to figure out any configuration between small clamps and large clamps so that the side and the toe could be done at the same time, and I couldn't. So we're just gonna do the side, this tip right here, we'll do that later. I highly suggest figuring out the configuration of your clamps before you start this project. I'm just going to get on the inside, and I don't really care if it gets on the outside that much, but I can kind of use this edge to clean that off. Turns out it goes all the way to the back, a little bit farther than I thought. Maybe a couple dollops in there. Push it down pretty far. I haven't messed with this too much because, again, I think I'm gonna have to do that separate after this, but I'll put a little glue in there just in case. Use this other one to maybe scrape off some of the excess, which seems to work. Okay. Now I'm going to clamp it up. I ended up changing the orientation of the clamps despite having guessed what I thought it would be originally. I am going to leave this for 24 hours to let it cure. I will come back and see what I may have messed up. I might need a little bit more over here. This doesn't need to be the prettiest repair. Try to prevent the cap from sticking when we reopen this later. You can put a little bit of Vaseline right here. Just gonna rub it right around here. Doesn't need much. And then that way when we go to open it later, it should come off a lot easier. It's been about 23 hours. I am going to remove these clamps and see where we are at. It doesn't look terrible. You can see here where I put probably a little bit too much, kind of squeezed out a little bit. If I try to do this, you can see, can't really get my thumb under there, so that's a good sign. This is gonna be better than it was. Here is the toe, where there's still a little bit of separation right here. I'm gonna put a little bit in there this morning and then clamp it this way. We put that Vaseline inside and perfect. It opens up pretty easily. I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday. Just use a new one of these because I have a few. Just gonna put a little bit on the end. Same way I did yesterday. Just put that in there. I like these little devices, these little placker things, because you can kind of scrape and you've gotten it in the wrong spot or too much on the edge. As we know, if I put too much, it'll squish out to the top. But in this case, I'd rather have too much than not enough. All right, I think we're ready to clamp that. This is a little tricky to clamp because the angle is just rounded. So when I'm clamping this, I have to kind of clamp it against the side of the boot. In order to get this so that the pressure was in the right spot to actually get the edge of that toe, I put a clamp here, but it was slipping with the rubber. So then I put another clamp here, and it just is there to keep the other clamp from moving upwards. I'll wait another 24 hours and see how that toe looks. I took off the clamp that I had on the toe after another roughly 24 hours, and looks okay. I'm gonna take them out today and test them, and hopefully it holds. Just finished snowboarding. Was out for 4 hours and it was snowing the whole time. Yeah, looks like it held okay. There you go.